What's up, y'all? Welcome into another edition of DNVR Rams Live, presented by our friends at Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Happy Ag Day weekend, everybody. I am excited for today's show. I was able to catch up with my good friend Brady Hull of the Hull Show earlier this week. We will play his interview, kind of gives you guys an inside perspective on UNC. Unfortunately, there's just not a ton of media outlets out there that cover UNC full time. But Brady has a weekly show with UNC coach Ed Lamb. He's around the program. He's about as qualified to give a nice little synopsis of the Bears as anybody out there. And he also happens to be locked into CSU. So I thought it'd be the perfect week to get him on. I think I'm going to return the favor, do a little home and home, come on his show on Monday. But we'll play that interview here in about 15 minutes. Shout out to everybody rocking live with us this morning on YouTube. If you wouldn't mind giving us a thumbs up, saying good morning in the Toyota chat, all of that. Great to see Swole already commenting in the Toyota chat. Little brief update here on what's happening in Agland before we get into the second Mountain West Power Ranking. I did a preseason Power Ranking. Wanted to get at least one game in with every team before we updated it. I didn't feel like updating it based on week 0 was going to be very productive. So we'll get to the Mountain West Power Ranking 2.0 of the season. There's a lot of power rankings I've noticed out there. It's a segment I've been doing for like 5 years, and forever it was just me and I think Chris Murray of Nevada Sportsnet had one that he did, maybe not weekly, but it was a concept he flirted around with. Now there's like 45 different CSU accounts. They're all doing their thing. It seems like they're all aggregating. I will say maybe this is like a weird old man thing for me to rant about, but I don't understand all of these accounts in these companies that maybe exist. They claim to be national companies, but they don't create any content, any product. I don't know. Maybe I just don't understand the internet these days. But if you want to, put yourself out there and create something that's supportive of CSU, I think that's awesome. Reach out if you want any advice or stuff like that. I'll just say, we don't really need more aggregators. We need people creating their own content. That's why I was excited to see the Outlaws guys, do their own podcasts. Like, start writing, start a blog. There's enough Twitter accounts out there that just tweet, the same things that everybody else does. That's a whole side tangent. I'm sorry. But like I said, before I got distracted there, we are going to get into the Mountain West Power Ranking. My guess is that mine will not have as much dramatic movement as you might see with some of the other power rankings you'll find out there. And that's not to say that those people are doing it wrong. It's a subjective process. If you just want to show the standings, that's fine. I had a pretty well-rounded opinion, I feel like, on a lot of these teams coming in, and it's going to take more than a 1-week sample size for me to really budge on some of this. There is some movement, though, so we'll get into all that. I'll give my thoughts. If you missed it last night, CSU women's soccer now 5-0 on the season, 4 straight shutout victories. They've only allowed 1 goal all year after pulling out the 1-0 win over UNC. Getting a little bit of revenge for CSU, who lost to them in volleyball earlier in the week, like the 3rd or 4th year in a row. Obviously, we've had Emily Cohen on the show. Really enjoyed having her on the show and think she's great to talk to and all that. But that's a trend that's definitely gotta change. You can't keep losing these matches against UNC. Got back on the winning track last night. Swept Eastern Washington. They'll play Portland tonight. But I was bummed to see that. That's not the standard that has been set within that program. And I think she'd probably be the first to tell you that. Last bit of news here before we get into the power ranking. If you missed it, Kevin Lytle, Fort Collins, Coloradoan, he reported this the other day. Of course, the one practice I'm not able to make. We get news on Gabe Jones' injury. He is looking like he's going to be out for the rest of the season with a patella injury, which is a bummer. Puts a lot more on guys like Jack Moran and Lorich in the interior. Also, maybe a guy like Jernias, Tafia maybe steps up and plays a bigger role. But that's a tough blow. He played really well in that first half, and particularly with some of the runs in the interior, felt like his presence was missed, over those final 2 quarters against Washington. I also think the defense just got gassed. I don't think like him being out there would have been the difference between shutting down their run game or anything like that. But he's in the conversation for the best run stuffer on the team. So that's a tough loss, especially at this stage of the season. A good kid. We had him on the podcast when he committed this past winter. Really enjoyed getting to know him a little bit on that show, and I was looking forward to watching him this season. He was a guy that came in hungry, eager to prove himself, and he certainly had done that throughout the spring and then in fall camp. Was the number 1 guy on the depth chart. It's a really tough break. Obviously, it's a contact sport. It is part of the process here, but that's a tough blow for CSU, and especially against teams like Boise and UNLV's got a strong run game. That could be a loss that proves to be significant in the end. You hope not. You hope some of these other guys are able to step up, and I'm interested to see what they're able to do. But you never know, and that's definitely a tough blow for the green and gold. John in the Toyota chat wants to know, will all the wide receivers be available this weekend? I mean, they all dressed this past weekend, so I don't know why anybody wouldn't. That's not to say that Kojo Antwi is officially going to make his debut or anything like that. We shall see. Has been a full participant throughout camp and then, up to this process. So that's great to see. I don't know what the deal is with Armani Winfield last weekend, why he didn't really see the field much. He played a little bit, but no targets. I think part of it was Washington secondary did a really good job of just taking the Rams receivers out of it. That's actually going to be one of my keys that we'll get into at the very end of the show. 3 keys that I have for CSU for success against UNC. Obviously, the expectation is to win this game and frankly, to win big. There's no line, but this is one you've got to earn some style points in. I think you've got to win by multiple scores. I think you've got to establish your dominance, frankly, in a way that just wasn't necessarily the case last year when you played UNC. We'll see what happens with all of that. Like I said, we are going to get to that interview with Brady Hull here in just a couple of minutes. Let's do this Mountain West power ranking, though. I kind of talked about it here a couple of minutes ago, but my philosophy with all of this, it's not just to show you the standings. Just because you have the most wins in the league doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be at the top of my power ranking. For me, it's essentially evaluating a combination of what you've done for me lately. It's not to say that the results don't matter, but it's kind of trying to weight that along with what I ultimately believe your ceiling is. And because of that, like I said, it's not going to be drastically different now than it was, a couple of weeks back. Most of these teams are right along kind of what I thought they would be. Now, that's not to say, certain things have not gone better or worse, for some of these teams, but just keep all of that in mind as we go through them. We'll start at the bottom, work our way to the top. And number 12, it's Nevada still. Scored late against Penn State, got a feel-good moment there, but I mean, they got throttled, and what you would expect in that matchup. I'm not trying to act like the 46-11 outcome was unsurprising or anything like that. I've got questions about their ability to get off the field defensively. I'm not a Purdy fan at QB. I don't love what Nevada's got going at the moment. At number 11, although every part of me wanted to overreact and do a knee-jerk move here and, put them way up the rankings because they hung far tougher than any of us thought that they might. But I'm going to keep New Mexico. Both 12 and 11 are the same as what I had in the preseason rankings. Now, I do think that they're going to be a tough matchup, and their QB, he showed some things in that game. I thought their poise, their ability to fight was encouraging. Now, whether the depth is going to be able to hold up, like they feel like a team that, you lose 1 or 2 of these guys to injury, they could be in a rough spot. But I love the fight that they showed. You scored 17 points between the second and third quarters, got blanked otherwise, but I only gave up 10 in the second half. Like, they never stopped fighting. They're going to have a good run game. And I think they're kind of taking on the mentality of their coach, who might be a tough one to hang on to if things go the way I think they might for him down there over these next couple of years. I think he'll really stabilize that program. I think there's a limit to what you can accomplish there, frankly. And same thing with Reno, in the Toyota chat here is talent shortage at Nevada. That's largely been the case at New Mexico, although they've had guys come through, Dampier. They've had a lot of talented running backs come through. They just can't hang on to them, unfortunately. That's to say I like the fight. I need to see a little bit more before I'm willing to, shoot New Mexico up the rankings here. 10-9 also stayed the same. I've got Utah State at 10. I've got Wyoming at 9. Utah State, I felt like had a couple of chances to really bury UTEP and just kind of left them hanging around. I don't love the receiving core. I don't know if the backfield's quite as deep as it's been the last couple of years. Barnes is a good athlete, and I think Mendenhall put him in a good spot to take advantage of his dual threat skill set. But defensively, they've lost a lot. They've got a weird situation going on with Ike Larson. I'm skeptical at the moment, although a lot like what I said with New Mexico, I think that was a good hire, and I think he'll long-term have success. And Logan, Wyoming, I almost jumped them up 1 or 2 spots. You did get a shutout win on the road, which in principle, I have to give you credit for. I also watched that game, and man, that's not a good Akron team that you beat up on. You only win 10-0. Felt like that should have been a little bit more decisive. That's a matchup I would have liked to have seen a few more style points from them and in order to feel comfortable kind of putting them above Fresno and San Diego State here. But really, I think this tier, Utah State, Wyoming, Fresno, San Diego State, San Jose State, they're all kind of right along the same level of competitiveness. And I think there'll be some fluctuation with these teams, like leapfrogging each other, falling below each other. But I don't know if they're really going to jump up into that top tier at any point. I've got Fresno at 8, San Diego State at 7. I flipped those two from the preseason. So I don't know. Like, I have some questions about Fresno offensively. I do like that they pulled away against Georgia Southern at home. San Diego State, they murdered Stony Brook. I don't know how much stock I really put into that, other than like this is a similar situation that CSU's in, right? Like you want to take care of business against lower competition in your own building. They did what they should have, and because of that, I moved them up 1 point. They're always going to have some explosiveness. They're always going to have some good athletes. They've got a good pass rush, and I like their coach. So I think they'll be competitive this year, but I do feel like there's a gap between them and some of these other teams. San Jose State, they took the biggest tumble in my power rankings. I think we had them at 3 in the preseason, drop them to 6, so they fall the furthest after losing to Central Michigan at home. Central Michigan been weirdly competitive in some of these games against Mountain West teams the last couple of years. That said, that's just not a game you can lose at home if you want to have aspirations of being viewed as a contender. And obviously they have plenty of time to recover from that. That's not a loss that necessarily defines your season. You could still win the league, and they've got a very favorable conference slate, which is why they were such a popular pick to make the title game in the first place. But, losing Nick Nash, I know they've got Walker Eget back, but I just had some questions if they'd be able to pull out some of those coin flip games that they basically were able to win last year by, Nick Nash catching YOLO balls and 50-50 plays. So we'll see. That was not encouraging to me and did validate some of the skepticism I had for the Spartans coming in. I've got Hawaii at 5. I believe I dropped them 1 spot, or maybe that's right where I had them. I think that's where I had them actually in the preseason. So no movement there. UNLV jumps up to 4. I had them at 6 in the preseason. That was a controversial take, and I know a lot of people are going to have them 1 or 2 now because they're 2-0. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen anything out of them that makes me feel any different than I did coming into the year, which is that they have some good athletes on both sides of the ball. Jet Thomas is a stud in the backfield, and Calandria, he's moving the ball. He's making some plays. I think it's going to be him that kind of takes reins of that starting QB position over the next couple of weeks, although maybe you still work in Orgy, kind of like what CSU is doing with Bullock. But they're inconsistent, and I didn't like what I saw in the fourth quarter of this past matchup. I didn't like what I saw in the first quarter of the matchup before it. I'm still in wait and see mode with them. And we're going to learn a lot about UNLV with how they fare against UCLA this weekend. That's a winnable game. But if you get rung in this one, that could bring some people like onto my side of things. I guess that's what I'm saying. I jump Air Force from 4 to 3 in the power rankings. Again, like can't take a ton away from what they did in this last matchup, but I do think they're going to be much improved. And what I saw in the trenches, what I saw in the ground game, it kind of validated what I thought about them coming in. And then 2-1, I kept the same. I've got CSU at 2. I've got Boise State at 1. I know a lot of people are going to be like, how do you not drop Boise after they lose by 27? But that's a game where you can't just box score glance. And I mean, they outgained them in total yardage. They had way more first downs. They had like 13 more minutes of possession, but you fumble twice, when you're driving past the 50, that kill 2 successful drives. You give up the fake punt for a big score. Like 3 plays really completely changed the dynamic of this game. Otherwise, it's probably at worst like a 10-point loss, even like a 1-score loss against a team who I think will be a bowl team and be in the mix in South Florida. Look, I feel like the gap between them and everybody else, like I've said a million times now, is not what it used to be. I think if you're the rest of the Mountain West, you should go into this eager and excited that you should have a chance here. But again, I'm not going to overreact, and I think a lot of people are, maybe based on just a small handful of plays. All right, that's the power rankings. We can fly through it real quick. Nevada 12, New Mexico 11, Utah State 10. We've got Wyoming at 9, Fresno 8, San Diego State 7, San Jose 6, Hawaii 5, UNLV 4, Air Force 3, CSU 2, Boise State 1. The results do matter, but again, this isn't the standings. If it's just, well, UNLV has 2 wins, yes, that's what the standings are for. This is a power ranking. All right, we're going to get to that interview with Brady Hull here in just a second. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Fun conversation. Let's shout out a couple of our partners and we'll keep it rolling. Whether you need snapbacks, truckers, fitteds, beanies, or tees, Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. If you're looking for gear to make your brand stand apart, Branded Bills has you covered with the best custom headwear. Start your order and their dedicated team will help you create the exact custom apparel you need. They've got an awesome partnership with CSU. Really thankful for the hats they sent over to me. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. All right, I'm so stoked that college football is back, y'all, and nobody makes it easier to get tickets last minute than our friends at Game Time. Maybe you weren't planning on coming to Ag Day this weekend. Saturday, your plans free up, hit up Game Time, see what kind of deals they've got rocking. There's just nothing better than being in the stands, feeling that energy, hearing the marching band, smelling the hot dogs, all of it. And with the Game Time app, it gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Incredibly easy to use. Plus, the Game Time guarantee means you can trust 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. You're not going to get hit with a bunch of last-minute fees. Take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time and NCAA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, redeem that code DNVR for $20 off. Tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. CD6 in the Toyota chat says that Boise defense might be legit bad. The corners were rough, and their tackling was definitely something that stood out to me in a negative way. Could be something you really take advantage of with running backs like Jalen Dupree. I also thought they did a pretty good job of generating pass rush, but much like CSU, they couldn't keep the quarterback contained within the pocket, and he burned them with his ability to extend the play a couple times. It's week 1. It's going to happen. Now, if that continues to be the case, that's going to change some things. And that's how you see, CSU, UNLV, Air Force, and these other teams take that top spot. All right. I don't want to ramble too much because we've got about a half-hour interview with Brady. We're going to play part 1 here. Brady gives us an inside perspective on UNC, his thoughts on CSU, expectations for this year, what the Rams need to accomplish for him to feel like it's a successful season, all that fun stuff. I really appreciate him hopping on with us this week. All right, joining me on DNVR Rams Live, we have got friend of the program, host of the whole show, Brady Hull, who might at this point be the most knowledgeable UNC Bears source, at least in the media sphere. Like, I'm sure there's some super fans out there that could put any of us to shame, as is the case. But I appreciate you coming on. You look good. Do you miss the beard?
Not yet. There will probably be a time when I try to grow it back out again. But man, that was a little more than I bargained for. I've never let it get that long, and thankfully the Rockies got it done. Got to 35. Took forever to get there, but that was quite the journey, my friend.
You had a pretty good looking beard. I'm not gonna lie. Like it
I
wasn't
was
patchy. It was full. I
I
mean,
was surprised. The problem was here. I have like a weird cowlick that goes around the hair and around the beard. So the beard cowlicks too. So the problem was right up here, it's curling around the ear, and here is just like perfect. So it was starting to get a little crazy on the right side of my face where it was growing around the ear. It was time. It took forever to get that bad boy off. Clogged a lot of drains.
it just cracked me up because you'd make the posts about it, and I was like, oh, poor Brady looking handsome with his awesome beard. Like give me a break.
Well, my
Uh,
and my guy Tanner, poor dude, he can't grow a beard at all. So he's going through this process and it's going every which way and he was hating it so much. But I had to do something to inject so because it was still summer, right? And there's nothing, we got all of our preview shows that we can talk about and gearing up for the seasons, but you can only do so much of that. I wanted a reason to watch the Rockies outside of rooting for them not to make bad history. So I just decided to do something personal and it kind of worked out. It was fun.
it was fun to follow. I had fun. They've kind of fallen off a cliff, but the Rockies were playing some good ball there for a little bit after the All-Star break. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like this summer especially has felt particularly dead just because all of like the sports schedules got off because of COVID. So like we had the bubble and then we had the Olympics and the World Cup and all these things that got delayed. So I just feel like there's been something every summer kind of up until now.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
thank God college football season is here, right?
oh my gosh, it's so much fun. There's just well, and for you, man, I mean, covering CSU as long as you have and the Mountain West Conference, the I think the drama factor is so incredible this year because it is the last year for Colorado State in the Mountain West. I think it makes all those games just a little more interesting when it's going to be the current the staying Mountain West teams going up against the exiting Mountain West teams. It just adds a lot more juice. So it just feels something about this college football season just feels bigger across the board.
I'm with you. I want to come back to CSU, but I do want to kind of start here just with some thoughts on UNC because it's not their fault, but it's a small market and there's not a ton of in-depth coverage out there. It's kind of hard to get information when you're trying to scout a team like them outside of just watching the games. But kind of what was the realistic expectation? Like obviously you'd love to see them really turn it around, but they haven't had a winning season since 2016. I don't think they've won more than 3 games in that stretch. It's been really tough.
It has been a very strange journey with this team. I mean, going back to the Ed McCaffrey hire, that was a crazy time. It felt like at the time, wow, the UNC Bears football team finally made some kind of a splash, but that's what it was. It was a
It was a
splash
PR
for
move.
the sake
Yeah.
of making a splash, yeah. Um, but they've been around that 2 to 3 win mark, and now obviously Ed Lamb, they won one game last year. They didn't win any games the year before that, and so they're already at their total. They tied their total from last year after beating Chadron State. Um, it's it's unfortunate because Ed Lamb is a really good coach. I mean, this was a guy. He was obviously took Southern Utah. They won this league, the Big Sky, and he was in the playoffs. And then he was an assistant at BYU, and he was one of their prominent assistants. And he's talked to us several times about he's not really a Mormon guy. So obviously, if he ever was in the running for being a BYU head coach, that went out the window. Not saying he would have been, but he was never ever going to be in consideration for that. So he's a legitimate coach. He wanted to have a project. He has a son with autism, pretty severe autism. He wanted to come to more of a low key environment and try to turn a program. And so this is kind of what he wanted to do. But this guy could have gone on to a lot of different spots to either be a coordinator of some kind and then quickly move up, or even be a coach a little bit higher level than where UNC is. But he really valued this opportunity to try to take on a project. It's not an area that's going to put a ton of pressure on their coaches. Ernest Collins Jr., I mean, you mentioned he had 2 seasons where they won 6 games. Outside of that, he was around that 3 to 4 win total for about 9 plus years. And there was not a lot of pressure on him until finally it was just too much. So he kind of liked that aspect of it. He's a great human being, and I mean he's got to work some miracles here. And if he can't do it, Justin, I just don't know. I don't know with their lack of resources if anybody can.
I struggle. I've at times pondered, would they be better off just dropping football altogether? They don't have the resources to compete in the Big Sky. They'd be better off being a D2 football program. But from being in what's probably the SEC of the FCS and the Big Sky, you are getting some type of monetary, compensation, which helps fund, volleyball and basketball, which are both doing great things right now. So it's not as simple as like we'll just cut football because then you're potentially hurting some of your other programs. And I don't want to be dismissive or offensive to UNC football fans because it's a program I think everybody would like to see have some success. As a CSU guy, obviously not at our expense this weekend, but if they went 11-1, I would be stoked. You mentioned the McCaffrey stuff, which was one thing I did kind of want to ask you. I was skeptical from the beginning. I know it was the splash PR move, but it kind of reminded me of whenever any of these jobs open up, everybody's, oh, Dave Logan, Dave Logan. And I understand he's the greatest high school football coach, but it's just so different. And especially a guy like McCaffrey, who really didn't even have a ton of high school coaching
Yeah,
experience,
2 years.
it feels like it did far more damage than the 2 weeks of good PR that you got out of it and people being like, this was fun.
Yeah, and I'll admit, like growing up, you and I, like, I was a Ed, who wasn't an Ed McCaffrey fan. It was impossible not to be an Ed McCaffrey fan. So the idea of me doing interviews with Ed on a weekly basis, and I worked with Dylan a little bit. We did, and then he transferred. He was, what, fourth, fifth string quarterback at Michigan, transferred to UNC. At that point, and I still think to this day that was the biggest transfer they've ever had.
Oh, yeah, easily.
Obviously we know why, and Dylan didn't turn out to be that guy. He wasn't Christian or Ed or even Max. But it did pack a punch for a moment, but it quickly lost its luster. This. I mean, even at the CSU level, Jay Norvell is so active. He's so active. He's out in the community doing stuff all the time.
You got to be a
That's
politician.
Oh, yeah, you have to be. You have to glad hand. And with Ed, the troubling part was, he had a house here, but he wasn't really up in Greeley a whole lot. And I think it's a small city. People know things, and I think that was a problem. He wasn't at a lot of events, and then that's not even talking about the X's and O's or how he handled his team, but that was certainly a problem. If you have a coach, I mean CSU, I don't know how active Steve Adazio was. Didn't seem like what we're
Not
seeing
at
with
all.
Norvell.
Yeah.
That's a problem
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, if you do struggle, sometimes people will forgive those struggles for a while if they're like, he's a great community supporter, he's all in on this stuff, he's an amazing human. And that's not saying Ed wasn't an amazing human. He just didn't immerse himself into the community.
What do you feel? You said, Ed Lamb is a good coach. They already matched the win total from last year. I don't know if we really hit on this. Like, was there hope coming into this year that it was going to be improved from the last couple of years? Like, what
Yeah.
was kind of the mindset, of obviously if you won no games and then one game, I mean, if you won 3 games, that'd be substantial growth.
Unfortunately, that's kind of where my mind has been. Like, hey, I mean, they should be able to beat Portland State at the end of the season. That's at the very end. But this is a team that's probably, if they could win 3 or 4 games, that would be considered a pretty big success. This team doesn't win 4 games. They rarely win three. So that would be a big success. A lot of the optimism surrounding UNC was, can we stay healthy at quarterback? And last year, it was a quarterback battle between Peter Costelli and former Wyoming Cowboy Hank Gibbs, and so we didn't know who that was going to be. Costelli wins the battle, gets hurt in the CSU game. Hank Gibbs comes in, gets hurt the next week, and then they have a revolving door at quarterback. And they were in games. They beat a ranked Weber State team on the road
I
last year.
remember, yeah.
They were ahead of Abilene Christian. They scored with about 35 seconds left. Abilene Christian drives down the field. They get a 53-yard field goal to win the game in Greeley. So they
They
had
pulled
a
a
lot.
CSU.
They had a lot of these games, Justin, where it's like, okay, there it is, but they couldn't get over the top. And then after all the quarterback injuries, I think frustration settled in for everyone because your defense is like, we're making stops, we're making stops, we're making stops, but we just can't consistently move the ball down the field. And defenses always had their back up against the wall. So I think that frustration settled in, and that's why you started to see more lopsided scores as the year progressed.
So how does that kind of shift expectations then, given that Castelli is, I know Lamb said maybe not 100% out for the year, but out for a significant period, we can say?
Yeah, for sure out for this one, and probably will miss the season. Ed wanted to leave that open, but it's tough because Hank Gibbs transitioned to tight end and hit so all off season he's in the tight end world. He's not studying the quarterback playbook. He's not doing any of that stuff. So he's a tight end. He did throw a pass and he might throw some passes. They might have him do that, but he's not going to know the Rolodex of plays that a quarterback is expected to know. So it is going to be Eric Gibson Jr. I mean, the guy has an amazing work ethic. I love his attitude. I don't know a lot about him, but I will say this: when Castelli went down in the game against Chadron State, right after that was a lightning delay, and it was a 2-hour lightning delay because like every time a lightning strike hits, it's what,
Like
30
another
minutes?
45 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
45 minutes tacked on. So they had like three of them. So that was tough. But the fact that the Bears came out of the locker room after that with Eric Gibson Jr., did drive down and get a field goal. That was their last points of the game, but they did drive down and get those points, made it the 17-3 game. I thought was pretty significant, pretty a confidence booster for him. We'll see. Just don't know a lot about the dude at this point.
From what you saw from him, does he seem kind of like the Castelli mold? He's more of, a dual threat, probably a bigger threat to run you over than, torch you through the air all game.
Yeah, he could probably run you over and stuff. But he's probably, I mean, Castelli was fast. Castelli was really
Yeah, he
quick.
can move.
So I don't know if Gibson has, or if he has that style. He was primarily trying to stay in the pocket in his short stint. I mean, they were really trying to run the ball, get through that game as best they can. So we still didn't get like a full glimpse of who this guy is going to be. But I do think that Ed really tried to make it a point of emphasis this year in when he was building his quarterback room. We got to get guys that are closer to what Castelli does, so that if he gets hurt, because he has a history even beyond UNC of getting hurt, that when we make that change, if we have to, it's not such a drastic change. So I would expect Gibson to be able to do some of those things.
I'm biased. I know the family a little bit. I just want that for the record. But Caden Box does a pretty good football. I've been a little surprised that he hasn't really gotten a realistic opportunity to compete.
Yeah, Caden is everything I hear. I mean, Ed really likes the guy, but that kind of goes back to, okay, he is definitely more of a
He's a
pocket
pocket passer.
guy.
Yeah.
He's nothing like Castelli in that sense. So it is interesting. I always wonder why coaches go that route. If I ever make it to the big leagues, Justin, beyond Madden and college football, which so far not so good, I don't have any offers. I would always just think that you want your backup, especially in college, you want your third string, fourth string guy to be somewhat similar if that's that style you're going to go with. But I don't know that Ed's committed to a running style quarterback. I think that's just who Castelli is, so that's where they went. But it is always fascinating when you see whether it's college or the NFL, where you got a running quarterback and then the backup is a pocket passer. That does change things. I mean, I remember when the Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson, Joe Flacco was still the starting quarterback. Two completely different quarterbacks. So Hank, I do think Caden is a good quarterback. It just maybe doesn't fit exactly what they've programmed throughout the offseason.
All right, we will get to part 2 of that interview with Brady here in just a second. A lot of great insight. Let's shout out a couple of our partners and keep it rolling. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA. For generations, Toyota's built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails, whether you're hauling the weight of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you. Check out the Tacoma. Check out the Land Cruiser. They've got 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive like the Epic 4Runner. They also offer more low and zero-emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to give customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. 16 hybrid vehicles to choose from, which is what makes them so perfect for Colorado. You can cruise comfortably around downtown. You can also take them to the mountains, hit the western slope, all of the above. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics and the official vehicle of DNVR. Toyota, let's go places. Coors Light encourages you to never lose your chill. Life is going to test you. Getting worked up, it rarely fixes anything, really, in any context, from like the actual hardships you'll experience in life to little annoying things like somebody steals my tripod at practice a couple of weeks ago. What's the point of that? It's far more of an inconvenience to me than it is a valuable addition for somebody else. What am I going to do? Am I going to throw a fit? Am I going to, cuss up a storm, kick a trash can? It's just going to make the whole situation worse. Got to do what works for you. Got to, take a walk, take deep breaths, do some yard work, whatever you got to do. Put yourself in that chill state of mind. Then when you're kicked back, when you're chilling, when you got college football on, pour yourself a nice little Coors Light. When the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Visit CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Joey says hoodies and flannel shirts. Fall is here on the big show. Amen, brother. Amen. Let's play part 2 of that conversation with Brady Hull, and then we'll wrap up at the end with a couple of keys for the Rams in this matchup against UNC. Backs last year, who are kind of some of the names that CSU fans should be aware of?
Well, Matthias Price was pretty good last week. He was a name, we've been watching out for a lot. Kind of thought he would have one of those games. Rocco, his last name's mistaking me, or Rocco is a really good running back too, a guy that great attitude. I love his get up and go. But Matthias Price is the one to watch out for. But what's fascinating with Ed, with his running back room, it is the most difficult running back depth chart to try to predict because he basically does not. He says and I know a lot of coaches do this, but he's crazy about this. You earn your job every week, literally earn it every week. And you could be the number one ball carrier the week before. If you don't bring it in practice, if you're not looking good, you could move down to third. You could move down to fourth. I think of former current CSU running back Van Shield. I thought for sure he is going to be the number one guy. And that first week of the season, he was. Then he moved down. Then he had some injury stuff. Predicting Ed's running back depth chart is the most complicated thing I've looked at in trying to figure out who's actually going to be out on the field.
Do you think Dawson Menegatti is going to be a part of the game plan at all? I saw he was on the roster.
Ed talked about him actually a little bit on Football 52 this week. So usually when he brings up a name that I don't go out of the way to ask about, would lead me to believe that probably so.
It's going to be interesting. Like I don't want to put you in a weird spot where you have to, you've been very honest about the state of UNC, but like from the CSU standpoint, I think this is a matchup where you kind of want to see some style points. I've talked about how it's been a long time since the Rams have like really thumped someone. I mean, you've had some decent wins, but like a true blowout where it's completely lopsided. I think you got to really go back to like they beat Fresno 44-0 in like 2015. Like, I mean, it's been a really long time. Even the games against teams like UNC, UTEP last year, like they haven't been the overwhelming showing, like in disparity of talent that you would like to see. I think if you're CSU going into this, just given the struggles UNC has had, given the QB situation and the uncertainty, like I don't normally say this, but like this feels like a game you should expect to win, by like 40 points and put 50 plus on the board.
Yeah, and I kind of felt the same way last year too. And UNC kind of had it
They hung around.
Game in the third. It was a 10-point game. If I'm CSU, I need to blow this team out. I mean, this is a team that we can get into the details of Shadron State, but at the end of the day, it's a D2 school that UNC beat 17-3. Although Shadron State blew UNC out like 7 years ago.
They're a good D2 team.
Yeah, they're
still,
a good D2 team. But yeah, this on CSU side of things, this should be easily a 20 plus, maybe into the 30s. You would want to see that from this crew going forward because again, if it's somewhat of a close game, if the worst thing even happens, what does that mean for Jay Norvell? I mean, I know Rams fans are giving me crap because I keep saying hot seat stuff, but it is what it is.
Well, until you have a new deal, it's not out of the question. I mean, there's certainly some skepticism there. Like, I think if the admin was leaping for joy about what they had seen to this point, you'd probably already have a deal done.
100%.
I do think there have been some conversations there. I think CSU probably wants to go with a more modest extension if that's to happen. And I think that makes sense based on some of the stuff that's happened in the past. But yeah, I mean, there's absolutely pressure here. And to me, it feels like these next 3 games, we're always going to kind of determine the direction of your season. Just you assume you're going to lose at Washington. You assume you should beat a team like UNC at home. But for me, like these three non-conference games at home, if you could be 3-1, just the difference that would feel with the fans and stuff compared to like the last couple of years where it's 2-2 at best. Like I just think they need to earn some goodwill here.
Yeah, I do too. And again, if they can be 3-1 after the non-con schedule, um, the Mountain West, who knows? I mean, after what
Doesn't
we saw
look great.
in State, that was rough. Wyoming against Akron, I'm not sure if Wyoming's figured it out just yet. Air Force, maybe they covered a
They're
30 plus
improved.
point
They're a
spread.
lot improved.
Improved.
Yeah.
And I think we all kind of thought, Calhoun's not going to have two bad years in a row. So, but it could be a little more open. I don't know that UNLV is very good. I mean, I think you and I've talked
I've
about
been
that.
fading them for a while. I took a lot of heat for that in the preseason. I know they're 2-0. I'm going to take some heat later on. We're airing this on a Friday. The final segment, I do my Mountain West power rankings. I'm going to take some heat that I don't have UNLV in the top three still just because they're 2-0. I don't know. I try not to get too overreactionary based on like if I had this opinion on these teams based on months and months of research and all that, like I'm not going to just completely throw it out the window after 1 or 2 weeks.
Right.
Off of that, though, based on what you saw against Washington, just where are you at with your expectations for CSU? Like Jay said on Monday, he feels like they have championship DNA. Is that just coach speak? Like it does the product on the field, and it's a very small sample size, but you're at practice, you're going to games. Like, does this feel like a team that could do that to you?
My view has changed a little bit. I thought maybe this is a 6-7 win team. I did take Washington to cover that 21.5 spread. And it was what, 17? Was that the
Yeah,
it wasn't that I thought CSU was bad. I just thought, okay, it's Washington. It's at their home. It's loud as crap there. I felt like it was going to be 14-0 right out the gates, and it was basically going to be Washington controls this game all the way through. Maybe CSU does a little something, but the fact that this was pretty much a 7 point game throughout was really impressive. And there were some things that obviously BFM with the interception and then the fake field goal that wasn't a fake field goal. Like those things bother me. Like, is BFN just going to always do that? Is Jay Norvell going to overthink certain things? But I think X's and O's, guys on the field, I was impressed defensively. We'll see. Washington, that's tough for Tyson Summers and that this brand new group getting together, going into Washington, trying to shut them down. Good, they have some really good players. So I'm actually like more optimistic about CSU and what they might be able to do because it looks like maybe a more of a wide open Mountain West, and I like some of these offensive weapons for. I mean, our guy Jackson Warren and
he's
Dupree. Give him more than 4 carries in the second half. That would be neat. Um, and I still like BFN. I think he can be electric, but he can also do not comparing him, but it just reminds me of Jake Plummer. Like Jake Plummer could do some of the coolest things, and then suddenly he's throwing it with his left hand and throws a pick six. Like I think that's BFN. He's a cowboy, not a Wyoming cowboy, but he's a gunslinger, and he's fun to watch. But there are those moments where you're just like, ah. So if he can calm down, that's the big if because it hasn't happened yet. I do think that maybe this team could make some realistic noise here, and Jay Norvell's here for the long haul.
I think it's really funny you just compared him to Plummer because that's not a comp that I've ever had, but it's kind of perfect. One of the things I talked about after the last show is I tend to be more defensive of Braden than I think the general consensus seems to be. I just think we're really hypercritical with quarterbacks, and that's not unique to CSU. Like it's been the case a lot. I was very defensive of Nick Stevens to the fans. Like I've been defensive of guys like Caleb Haney over the years, but Jake Plummer, he was my guy. I loved him,
Oh,
and
Jake
all
Plum.
of the criticisms of his game are valid. Like I can't sit here with a straight face and be like, no, he doesn't throw, YOLO balls. He did it and he was proud about it. Like you see clips from him today and he's still like, yeah, I threw as many touchdowns as I threw interceptions, but I gave my guys an opportunity to make a play. I don't know. Like there
Some
are
guys,
times where I wonder if I should be more critical or if I feel like we're all just so warped having seen like Manning and Elway and like really the position played at the peak of its possibility. I don't know. I think it's such a tough position to play in this state.
I can't imagine what these guys go through. I mean, just having to know what you need to do, but also knowing everybody else's position, the pressure on these guys, it's only increased with all the big talk. And of course the the K-State, the NIL dollars,
That didn't help.
that didn't help. I still question in my mind at the time it happened, I was kind of like good for Jay Norvell because we got to start until we start naming names, nothing's gonna get fixed. So I was kind of for it, but then as I sat back down, I'm like, man, he just put a big target on BFN's back for sure. So like you're gonna expect the world from this guy. So I'm not sure if that helped,
That was
but
part of it. His comments with Tori before the CU game didn't help. And I've talked about that. Like there were things, sometimes you just got to know when to be quiet. I think he's done a better job of that coming into this year. Didn't take the bait at media days, but it's just a tough spot. And I go back and forth because it's hard for me because I've talked about it too. Like I see the mechanical stuff that everybody's talking about. You'd be blind not to. I also think from a raw arm talent standpoint, like he makes some throws that like very few quarterbacks can make, and it's confusing as to why there's not more of a consistency there. I'm hopeful he puts it all together because I think if CSU is going to reach their potential, that probably has to be a big part of it. So let me ask you this, because we've talked about it, the expectations on Norvell and this team and wanting to build off of last year. You're a little bit more optimistic after week one. What does this team need to do this year for at the end of the regular season, Brady Hull to feel like that was a good year for CSU? That was undoubtedly a success.
I mean, if we putting a number on it, you know, what we're hearing like eight is the floor. We want eight to be the floor. Then I think you have to, if we just want to put a number on, it's got to be eight. But I want to see this. What I saw against Washington, I really wanted to see. Even though they lost that game, even though there were some questionable decisions, that's exactly what I wanted to see. I know Washington's not Texas, but I hated the approach to Texas. I hated the approach to CU. And what I saw was a different approach. Was like, no, we're gonna go out there and we're gonna compete. I know that sounds so freaking cliche, but it looked like this team felt and knew they belonged on the same field as a Power Four football team. That's what I want to see is that belief. Win those games. Last year, they're taking advantage of the weird schedule. They didn't have Boise or UNLV on there. You go up against Fresno, it's right there for you, and you drop it. I want to see those big, fork in the road games where, hey, you win this game, we're moving. That's what I want to see this year, and maybe that doesn't result in 9 wins, but you go up against Boise State, but compete. I mean, they beat them once, right,
Once,
Justin? Is
yeah.
that right? At some point, it's not just about beating Wyoming and Air Force, and I know that hasn't happened a lot. I definitely need to see that, but I want to see this team. You feel it every game against teams maybe they're not supposed to win, but at least they're there like they were against Washington. And I think that would be a big growth. And even if they win 7, but you're still seeing a different kind of competitive focus, I guess, with this team. But it's hard not to put a number on. Like I do think that number needs to be 8 plus.
I think they do got to win 8 games, but that's simply because I think if you play 7 home games, you
Yeah.
should win 7 games. Like if you drop a home game, you got to make up for it on the road. I don't think the schedule from a conference standpoint is crazy daunting, partially because teams like Fresno and UNLV, I think, have taken a step back this year, and even Boise, who looks human, but I think everybody's burying them a little bit prematurely. It's a one-score game halfway through the third quarter. Like, let's chill out a little
Boise
bit.
looked amazing in that. I thought they were driving down the field. Their defense looked
Got to
ridiculous.
stop fumbling.
And then just suddenly the turnovers happened and South
Two
Florida. And
bad fumbles and a fake punt. That's the difference in that game.
it
And I
was
know it looked bad at times, but like it's just again same deal. People are gonna look at my power ranking and be like, "What? You didn't drop Boise to 6 or something?"
yeah,
No,
no,
they're the exact team I thought they were. I thought they'd win that game,
I did
uh,
too.
but it doesn't like drastically change my outlook for them. Um, what what's the score going to be on Saturday? What's your gut say right now? And this is just your gut. It's not necessarily like what you're rooting for, your heart, even your brain necessarily, just the vibes.
Well, picks are on Friday. Everybody knows that, Justin. But
I
I'm
don't
gonna.
want to. Well, this is airing Friday, so I'm not spoiling it.
Oh, good, good. Um, 34-10, CSU.
24-point win. I
Yeah,
think that'd be enough. It'd be on the lower side of
yeah.
enough, but if it was, especially if it was like a situation where you got up big and then you just kind of took your foot off the gas and you coasted and they scored a touchdown late or something like that. Oh no. All right, that was wonky. 34-10 is
Yeah.
where Brady is at coming into this game. I just want to see a CSU team never have any doubt in it. I think that's where I'm at.
It could be 34-0, and then your backups are in and stuff, and UNC finds a way to go down, score, maybe get a field goal. And I think Rams fans would feel good about that.
All right, last thing I'm going to ask you, especially because I'm having internet issues, and we'll see if this holds up or not. You're a no-co guy. I just moved. Well, it's been about 8 months now, but I bought a house in North Loveland, right on the kind of border of Loveland, Fort Collins. You're in Fort Collins a lot. You're in Greeley a lot. You're on the road. Where are some like lunch spots? Like, where's the go-to lunch
Mm.
spots in NoCo for when you're commuting, around this region?
Well, Fort Collins, I got to give a shout out. Definitely Crazy Carl's Pizza. Just,
Can
I
never
mean,
go wrong.
those guys are ridiculous. You and I know. I mean, Nate, they're amazing people over there. Um, haven't tried it yet, but I'm here. Okay, so Big City Burrito. I love Big City Burrito.
I do too.
Owners of Big City Burrito just purchased the long-standing Cables that has been here in Greeley, and it's going to be the Big City Roadhouse. And
Ooh,
I am hearing, and we're recording this on a Thursday. It opens today, and so I don't know if that's going to be my spot, but I'm hearing ridiculous things about it. Plus, they will have burritos on the menu, but that's not there's steak, burgers, pizza, all at tavern style pizza. So that's my new spot. I'm looking forward to checking out.
I'm excited for that. Have you ever been to Luna's Tacos over there in
Yes.
Greeley?
Very good too. Very,
Phenomenal.
very good. Downtown Greeley, excellent there. Tavern at St. Michael's Square. That's another good one in Greeley. They're off of Highway 34, kind of way west Greeley. But that's a good spot too. Not a lot of local restaurants in Greeley though. Not close to what Fort Collins has.
Well, I mean, Fort Collins is insane though. Like there's just so many places to eat.
So many options.
Brady, you're the man. Thank you for coming on. I've been meaning to have you on for a while. Um, we'll see. I don't know. You don't ever invite me on your show anymore. I'm
We'll
I'm
get you,
not
we got
Mr.
to get
Brohard or Kevin. I'm the ugly stepsister, I guess.
No, we're getting you on the show. We are getting you on the show next week. You could do, I don't know what your Friday looks like, but we got Football Friday coming up, which is big. We got a lot of stuff jam packed in there, so you might want to join us if you have time
Yeah, hit me
tomorrow.
up. I'm
Okay,
always down to come on, man.
let's get you on there, man.
Much love. Tell the people where they can find everything. Obviously, they can listen on KFK, but you guys got a website, Twitter, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, yeah. You can follow me at Whole Show. My podcast for everything that I do. You can go subscribe to that stuff. Apple Podcast, Spotify. 1310kfk.com. You'll find it there too. We do a lot. In fact, we're going to have Mr. John Weber on the show tomorrow,
Big
so
time.
on Friday. So we try to feature a little bit of everything. And I know some Rams fans don't want to hear it, but we do bring Cowboys people on. We do bring their coaches and we bring their insiders on. Our friend Cody. But I like talking college football and I like talking regional college football. It's my favorite thing. I love the Broncos, but I'm so intrigued by CSU and Wyoming and CU and all of it. It's just fun. So that's what we do. We talk everything. We try to anyway.
Oh, there's enough people talking about the Broncos at this time of year, so I'm
I
I'm
can
sure
only
there's a
talk
lot of
about the
folks out there who appreciate it.
I can only talk about the backup left tackle, so many times before I'm like, all right, let's talk about other stuff. I am excited about the Broncos though.
I am too. This is the first time in probably a decade that, like, I would say I was talking about this with Kevin. Last year, I was excited for the season. I would say I was intrigued. This is the first time, and probably since Manning, where I feel like I have legitimate expectations. I mean, I think they're going to win the division. That's how high I am on them.
I don't know yet. I may be there. I'm trying not to fall into it's the first weekend. I'm ready to go crazy and say the Broncos are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm trying not to, but I'm having a difficult time because this defense, and then with the Nick Benito signing, this defense is. We got to come up with a nickname for this defense, by the way, because
Yeah,
all
we do
the
need to come
great
up with
defenses get
something.
I
All
don't
the
know.
great defenses have them.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to start with that, but
It's got to
go
form organically. You need like a play or somebody to like a quote that sparks it, just something like that.
something big, and we'll get that. We'll get there, I'm sure.
All right, man. I've already taken up too much of your time. Much love, Brady. Thank you as
Thanks,
always for
dude.
coming on.
Appreciate everything you do, man. I love getting a chance when I do occasionally make it out to practice, seeing you and talking shop with you. You've done a phenomenal job. So you just keep up the great work, my friend. It's an honor to be on this podcast.
You're the man, Brady. Shout out to the homie Brady Hull. Of course, you can listen to him every day on the Hull Show, KFKA. They do a great job of talking all sports in the region. We're running a little behind here. Let me shout out a couple of partners. We'll give some keys. I'll respond to your stuff in the Toyota chat. Keep them rolling. Love to see how engaged it is, and then we'll call it a day. You know the moment when you realize you left your favorite sunglasses at the beach, at the hotel you stayed at, wherever, and reality sets in. They're gone. I lost them forever. One dumb moment, and now you're just screwed. Shady Rays, our friends, they can change all of that. Their sunglasses, every single pair is backed by lost and broken replacement. You can get seriously good looking, polarized, durable, and most importantly, not stupidly expensive shades. Like I said, every single pair backed by lost and broken replacements, so you can wear them with that peace of mind. We've teamed up with Shady Rays to bring you an exclusive offer. Head to shadyrays.com, use that code DNVR for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Finally, if you grew up playing basketball in Colorado, chances are you played in the Gold Crown Competitive Basketball League. I know that I certainly did. They've got divisions for 4th through 8th grade teams. They've got multiple levels of competitiveness, gold, silver, bronze. They've got club teams, elite and open. It's a great opportunity to play at the Gold Crown Fieldhouse, which really is the gem of basketball facilities in the region. Now's a great time to find a team in your area. Tryout pages are on the website or check with your local school. Learn more and sign up by scanning the QR code or visiting goldcrownfoundation.com. Again, you can scan that QR code on the screen or visit goldcrownfoundation.com. If you're not going to be in FOCO this weekend, you're looking for a great place to watch the game, come on down to the DNVR bar. We will have the game on with sound. Grab a burger. The chicken tenders are phenomenal. It's tough for businesses downtown right now. All the construction they've got going on at Colfax. If you want to support a local company who has a ton of local people like myself who grew up here who are trying to build something, it's a great way to support us, and I certainly would appreciate it. And frankly, the food is pretty damn tasty. You're going to be hard pressed to find a better burger in the area. I've got some comments I want to get to before I get into my keys. Chris wants to know where he can get the Comatose hoodie that I had on during my interview with Brady. Unfortunately, that was one that I got. It was made for the football team itself. It was just kind of a lucky find at the surplus store like 5 or 6 years ago. I think they made it for Bobo actually, and I just happened to have a similar body frame as him, and it all worked out. But that was a lucky score on my part. Somebody says, "Wish we played the Buffs." Me too. Like we all do. College football is more fun when you play regional rivalries. I think that's always going to be the case. Score points and you can control the tempo later. Oh, I see. I missed a comment earlier, which says you can't watch the rest of the QBs in the Mountain West and not think that BFN is clearly the most talented. He also steps into throws consistently and looks most comfortable in the 2-minute offense, which Josh agreed with. Something I've talked about for 3 years now. When he has been the most in the zone from a passing perspective, when you're mounting multiple scoring drives, unfortunately, it's been when CSU's been down big and they've been forced to go tempo. Did it against Utah State last year. Did it in the second half of that Fresno State game after going down. It was the case in the comeback win over Boise. He is one of those guys who succeeds when they run tempo. I think you saw it in the 2-minute offense late in the first half. For whatever reason, that's an area that he thrives. You can't play tempo 4 quarters a game. But I do agree with the Toyota chat here that if you score points early, you can mix some of that in, kind of take control of the matchup, and then maybe slow things down, lean on that ground game later on. It is something that I would like to see them mix in every now and then, spread it out and let him cook, as the kids say. Let's start to overtime real quick. Then we'll wrap up here with our final thoughts. We're going to go a little bit long, not crazy long. If you got more questions, comments, throw them our way in the Toyota chat. But let's throw. All right. Every week I have 3 keys for the matchup. It's always going to be different. Washington and UNC, kind of wonky. We talked about how if you were going to pull an upset of 22 points, you were basically going to have to play a perfect game, which they didn't do, but they showed a lot. You were going to have to create some momentum via spark plays, which I think they did at times. Also lost some, with the pick and stuff like that. It's a completely different context going into this game against UNC. In principle, I really hate playing FCS opponents because there's nothing to be gained. I understand that everyone in the country does it. To me, like, this should just be a 0-week matchup. Like, I have all the FBS teams play FCS teams week 0, have it basically count as a preseason game. Like, that'd be fine with me. If you are going to play an FCS team, UNC is the one to do it. You don't want to bring South Dakota State into town, North Dakota State, one of these teams that you might just pay to kick your ass and embarrass you on TV. That's not to say that you can't still lose a game against, a struggling UNC team. You've got to respect your opponent. If you get too cute, you can be in trouble, in a hurry. But for me, like, the biggest key in this one is don't beat yourself. Don't turn the ball over. Don't commit stupid penalties. If they're talking trash, don't pick up 15 yards because you want to get the extra shove in. Don't get too cute, like, you have the talent advantage. You have the athletic advantage. Don't beat yourself in this one. You should be fine. I think you've got to set the tone early. We had some people allude to that in the Toyota chat. The longer you allow a team like UNC to hang around, the more their confidence is going to grow. And excuse my language here, but for a lack of a better term, the more your assholes are going to tighten yourself. Like, this is a game where you want to seize control right out of the bat. You want to put some points on the board. You want to cause some havoc defensively. You want them to feel shell-shocked, and you want this, as I've said a couple of times now, to be over by halftime, more or less. Like, last year, it's a 10-point game halfway through the third quarter, still end up pulling away and winning by 21. But even that's kind of flawed. Like, you scored a touchdown with 44 seconds. Like, it was mostly our 1 or 2 score game that entire game. That would be worrisome to me. That would make me feel that maybe this team isn't quite as good as I think they are. Now, there's other factors that could play into that. They could get too cute. They could play with their food. Maybe it means they just weren't as focused or locked in as they should be. But I would really love to see the Rams earn some style points in this one and put the kind of beat down on a team that we just haven't seen them do very frequently in the last decade. I finally got to get the receivers involved. Last week you're going up against a pair of NFL corners. They've got great length and size and athleticism. That's not the case this week. I know we're all enamored with Jalen Dupree. Nobody has been pounding the table for Jalen Dupree to be the man more than me over the last year. This is not the game where I want to see him have 25, 30 carries. In fact, I think it might be closer to what we saw last year, where it's more, a running back by committee. Keegan Hollis had 10 carries. Justin Marshall had 10 carries. Henderson had 8. Morrow had 5. Kobe Johnson had 3. Wouldn't shock me if it's more like that, especially because they've got some other guys they want to get in the mix. Like, I think we'd like to see Justin Marshall on the field. Keegan Hollis has been a productive player when he's been healthy. I'd like to see them get him in the mix. And honestly, man, I want to see some Javion Kennard at some point. He is explosive, little jitterbug when they get him the ball in the open field. Like, he can just make some special things happen. So to me, those are kind of the big keys. You want to seize control of this game early. You want to get the wide receivers involved, which we haven't really seen yet. That doesn't mean you abandon the run game. That doesn't mean you don't target the tight ends. I'd like to see Rocky Beers, in the mix this week as well. But the biggest key, don't beat yourself. Don't get stupid in this game, and you should be fine. Josh wants to know, I think scoring under 45 in this game could be considered a failure. I think the context matters in that, right? Like, if you're up 31-0 in the first half and you let off the gas a little bit, you bring in some younger guys, maybe you get a different quarterback in there in the second half, you score less than 44, that's fine. To me, you just want to leave no doubts. Like, you could score 60 points and the game could still be relatively competitive, like that San Diego State game in 2016 where you still give up, 30 plus, or you could win, you could only score 35, but if it's 35-0 and they don't have any first downs, that's kind of like that game in Albuquerque a couple years back when they had, what was that kid's name? Like Montez or whatever at quarterback. I just think that this is one that you're going to gauge more from the eye test than like putting a specific number on it. And that's why like there's not a line on it. I think it's just hard to kind of set that. Josh also wants to know how the D-line responds to losing Gabe Jones will be a big factor. Most definitely. I think that's going to be a big factor these next couple of weeks. And I think this is an instance where it's kind of nice that you have an FCS game and then a bye week, before two of the bigger non-conference games you've had at Canvas in a while. I know Washington State and UTSA aren't like a P4 team coming in from a flash standpoint, from a billboard value, but I think those are competitive teams. And I think that if you could win those games, that would speak volumes about the growth of this program. And it would be very validating for me on what I felt with CSU in the preseason, which was that this is very clearly going to be one of the top two teams in the Mountain West Conference. All right. Much love to Brady Hull. Check out his Football Friday program this afternoon. I think it just started. He'll have John Weber on there, so you don't want to miss that. Looking forward to seeing the pregame show that CSU is introducing with Ruby Kaiser and Mike Brohard. That's exciting. Kudos to the athletic department for continuing to innovate, adding more things for the fans. Amazing how just a little bit of effort goes. But big game coming up. Obviously, Ag Day. Got the gloves on, ready to rock. Thank you for listening to the DNVR Rams podcast presented by Branded Bills. Head to brandedbills.com. Use that code BBDNVR for 15% off of your first order. Much love, y'all. We are always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.